Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. All right, folks, so I was at Boulder Station. It's a local casino here in Las Vegas, and I was headed over to the sports book to put in a wager. And as I was walking through the casino, there was this lady sitting at a slot machine. And now let me paint the picture for you. Do you know those whole chickens that you can buy at like Smith's or Albertsons or whatever your local grocery store is, wherever you live? The fully cooked chickens, they come in, the plastic box. Okay, now that you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So, I walk into the sports book, I place my wager. I come walking out of the sports book, and as I'm walking out of the sports book towards the Burger King, for those of you who are familiar with Boulder Station, there is a lady sitting at one of the Buffalo slot machines, and folks, she was going to work on a whole chicken. Now, mind you, she's sitting at a slot machine that who knows how many people have had their fingers on and coughed on and sneezed on, etc., etc. And she's sitting there with this whole chicken off to the side of the slot machine, so she still has access to the buttons, of course, right? But she's sitting there, and I'm watching her systematically destroy this whole chicken like an actual apex predator. I couldn't stop. I couldn't help myself but stop. She was systematically destroying it. Leg, rah, 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 manically smashing her fingers down on the machine after chewing on the chicken. Pieces of chicken were flying everywhere. It was like a school of piranha got a hold of a carp. There were chicken pieces everywhere, skin, you name it. And as she's shoving this food into her mouth, the legs, the wings, pieces of the breast, she's eating and then slamming her fingers down onto the slot machine and then shoving her fingers right back into her mouth. Folks, we are absolutely doomed if this is the way people are going to be behaving in the middle of a COVID-19 outbreak. So I just thought it was pretty funny, honestly, and gross, to be honest with you. But I thought I'd share that story with you of what I saw walking in through the sports book and casino yesterday. It was just absolutely, positively disgusting to see. In the best of times, you should be sitting at a slot machine eating food, touching the disgusting keys and putting your fingers back in your mouth. But we're borderline in the middle of a pandemic, and this lady is just doing work like a legit apex predator, like a lion on the Serengeti, like a hyena with a bone. She didn't care one bit. I mean, when I tell you food was flying everywhere, food was flying everywhere. All right, so I had to relay that story to you folks because it was just, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it, honestly. I wanted to laugh and, and think it was funny, but considering what's going on right now in the whole world and the fact that, there's obviously more than one case here in Las Vegas, I just had to shake my head and I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, honestly. The way she systematically just devoured this chicken. It was like nothing was left but the carcass in the few minutes I stood there and watched what was going on. I could not believe my eyes. All right, on to the article. Today we have an article from the Independent, i.e. it's an Irish newspaper, and it has to do with Prince Andrew and the hiring of a legal team. So Prince Andrew hired one of Pinochet's lawyers, and as you all know, Pinochet was a dictator, and he liked to bring communists on helicopter rides and then throw them out of the helicopter, either into the ocean or lakes or into some mountain peaks in the Andes. So, obviously this lawyer has some experience dealing with high-profile scumbags. All right, on to the article, written by Victoria Ward. The Duke of York has hired Britain's most respected extradition lawyer as the FBI investigates his friendship with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Bet you he probably wishes he hired that lawyer before he went and did that interview, huh? Because that interview was an absolute nail in his coffin. He basically copped to being a scumbag, he copped to being a moron, and he certainly copped to being the prince of punk asses. So he should have hired these lawyers previously instead of listening to Amanda Thrask, whatever her name is, the media person that put him up to it. The 60-year-old Duke is receiving advice from Clare Montgomery QC, whose clients have included Augusto Pinochet, Chile's former dictator, and Nirav Modi, who was wanted for India's biggest fraud, the Daily Telegraph has revealed. I'm still not convinced that Dershowitz won't be involved in this. I know that I kept my underwear on. Dershowitz is definitely going to show his ugly face at some point here, or at the very least be giving this moron counsel behind the scenes and counseling his legal team, because there's just no way that the Crypt Keeper, Mr. AKA I'm not guilty because I kept my underpants on, isn't going to be involved. She is briefed by Gary Bloxsome, a criminal defense solicitor who has defended British troops against war crime allegations. He is understood to have been appointed directly by Prince Andrew. Yeah, they're probably buddies. I bet you if we dug around and looked, this Bloxsome guy, Gary Bloxsome guy, is friends with the royals. And, whatever. But you see here by the choices that Prince Andrew's making that this is no longer a joke to him. This is no longer something where he can just brush it away and know that he's going to be protected by his royal blood. That's not going to happen anymore, because you see that this legal team that he's putting together is not some B-rate legal team that would just be there to mitigate questions from the FBI or anything like that. This is a full-on defense team. We're talking, full-on OJ defense team here. The powerful legal team was assembled following a demand by the FBI and U.S. prosecutors to interview Andrew about his links to Epstein, who was found dead in prison. Until now, the identities of the legal team have been shrouded in secrecy, with Buckingham Palace aides refusing to reveal who is acting for him. Yeah, look, they didn't want to give up the game, right? They didn't want to give up the gag. They wanted Andrew to have as much of an advantage as possible. And with people not knowing who his lawyers were, well, the team of lawyers that are defending the survivors couldn't come up with their game plan, really, right? They have to understand who they're dealing with, what sort of lawyers they're dealing with, before they can really put their game plan into effect. And now that they know who they're dealing with, well, they can act accordingly. And as much as these folks might be high-profile lawyers in England, and I'm sure they're great at what they do, well, they're dealing with a whole different animal here in America now. David Boies is very, very, very high-profile, and his legal team is very competent. So, as much as Andrew has himself a fine team of defense lawyers here, they're going to be hard-pressed to get this guy off. They're going to be very hard-pressed to get the Prince of Punk asses off, because at the end of the day, he is not being truthful. The disclosure that he is using such an eminent team of lawyers suggests Andrew is taking seriously the threat of investigation by the FBI, as well he should. He knows that he's guilty, folks. In my opinion, the Prince of Punk asses knows that he's guilty, and he knows that without a high-profile team such as this, he is in big, big trouble. Even with this high-profile team, in my opinion, he's in trouble, folks. Prince Andrew is on the ropes. Miss Montgomery, a senior barrister at Matrix Chambers, co-founded by Cherie Blair, is thought to command fees of about £1,152 an hour. Pretty significant amount of dough, right? That's high-profile lawyer stuff. Here in America, it's the same way, even more in some cases. We're talking $2,500 an hour for some of these lawyers. Her clients have included Shreen Dewani, charged with and acquitted of murdering his wife in South Africa. She has also prosecuted the Metropolitan Police over the death of Jean-Charles de Menezes, shot dead in a failed anti-terror operation. Well, those are some big names, I guess, but there should be some she's gonna be facing a lot of pushback from the lawyers of the survivors and the lawyers of those who are seeking justice, because this isn't a case of, someone who was shot dead by the police where you have sentiment on your side, or you have a situation like, a man kills his wife and it's a bunch of he said, she said. Those are the kind of cases where, you get some sentiment on your side, especially the situation with, someone being shot in a failed anti-terror operation. Now, the situation with Shreen Dewani, I'm not too familiar with the situation of the man who was, charged and then acquitted of murdering his wife in South Africa. I'm not really familiar with the legal system in South Africa, but I know for a fact that when you have a case where it's, somebody being shot by the police, a lot of times you'll have sentiment on your side and you'll have an easier time with the jury pool. So I don't really know if we could give her credit for, that being some sort of big case that she's been involved in or anything like that, but I don't know. An online profile of Miss Bloxsome reveals she receives instructions from leading companies and ultra-high net worth individuals in international jurisdictions as well as in the UK. He is also known for reputation in crisis management, one acquaintance said. He's as sharp as a blade. He's absolutely brilliant. So that's Mr. Bloxsome they're talking about there. So I'm not familiar with any of these lawyers. I'm just going by what they're talking about here. But if Prince Andrew has hired such a high-profile team, then you know that he is definitely very, very, very concerned about what's coming down the pipe. In January, U.S. prosecutors took the unusual step of publicly accusing Andrew of ignoring attempts to contact him. Jeffrey Berman, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, said he has given zero cooperation. In response, sources close to the Duke accused U.S. prosecutors of failing to play with a straight bat. What does that even mean, a straight bat? What is it, a curved bat? A straight bat? The comments from these people just crack me up. The prosecutor was calling out Andrew because Andrew was refusing to cooperate. That's why he was called out in public. That's why he was called out at that press conference. These are strange times we're living in, folks, and sometimes strange times you got to use strange measures. And that's what the prosecutor did. The prosecutor brought it out into the public, and now, since Berman has brought it into the public eye like that and brought it up in that news conference, well, looky here. Now Andrew is getting some movement, huh? Now Andrew is starting to take it a lot more seriously. So as much as I don't trust the Justice Department, as much as I'm not a fan of the SDNY, well, I think that was a shrewd move on Berman's part, and I think that it is bearing fruit now. A friend suggested he was angry and bewildered by the suggestion he had refused to cooperate, insisting he had not been approached. Well, we have two groups of liars here. We have the federal prosecution in the United States, who's notorious for being liars, and then we have the Prince of Punk Asses, who is obviously a big old liar. So it comes down to, you really can't believe anybody here, so I'm going to go with the prosecution, and hopefully the prosecution is doing the right thing, and hopefully the prosecution did try to contact this idiot, and they were ignored, because if that's the case, then you know that's going to fire the prosecution up to go after him even harder, and if they have hard-charging attorneys assigned to the case and investigators assigned to the case, what that'll do is just get them more amped up. They'll feel like they're getting a thumb shoved in their eye, and because of that, they'll charge harder after this guy. But that all relies, like I said, that all relies on us having some prosecutors that are not afraid to go headfirst into cases like this. And so far, I have not seen any of those prosecutors, unfortunately. Now, there might be some. There might still be some in the SDNY, but I'm not holding out hope that we're going to see a very proactive job from the FBI here. You know, they're going to have to prove to me that they're going to be super proactive in this case, because their track record leading us here has not been very good. Buckingham Palace has distanced itself from the ongoing crisis, saying Andrew is no longer a working royal, and, as such, it does not represent him. It says that the issue is being dealt with by the Duke's legal team. And we see that for sure. We see that Buckingham Palace has distanced themselves from the Prince of Punk Asses for quite some time now. And you see that with this especially being, there hasn't been some announcement from Buckingham Palace or an aide from Buckingham Palace come out and explain what's going on. So basically, in public anyway, they're leaving the prince to, blow in the wind. Privately, however, I still believe he is being supported by his mom and the royal the royal palace as a whole. Maybe, it might not be in public, but privately, I definitely believe he is still receiving the report from the Queen and from the royal palace. So it's interesting to see where this goes. It's interesting to see what these lawyers have to say if they ever get Andrew to sit down in a room, and I'm interested to see what sort of firestorm his lawyers unleash, because they're going to come out with both guns blazing and they're going to try and destroy Virginia Roberts' credibility, and they're gonna do it brutally. They're gonna come out and they're gonna be nasty about it, and they're gonna take a page right out of the Dershowitz book. Watch and see, folks. Do not doubt me on this. They're gonna be vicious, and every time that they're vicious, you're gonna know that they're just grasping at straws, because at the end of the day, like Virginia Roberts herself said, she knows the truth and Andrew knows the truth, and only one of them are lying. And folks, the evidence points to the Prince of Punk Asses being that liar. All right, everybody, so I will be back later on with a daily drop for sure. I'm thinking about, like I said last night, an evolution episode. If I could fit one in today, I will. If not, I'll certainly do an evolution episode tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So I hope everybody has an amazing Saturday, and I will be back later on for the daily drop. If you would like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. Also, if you would like to help the podcast, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link inside the description box. All right, folks, enjoy your afternoon.